So I'll do a little introduction. Ladies, gentlemen, possums, and the world over. Today is such an exciting day for me because I have such an exciting guest when it comes to the Soul Mechanic Coach Cafe. Because, as you may know, my focus is in the coaching space, and more importantly, it's focused in the dating, relationship, and intimacy space. And so my model is I work with men separately, I work with women separately, and then I also integrate men and women. So I look at it like one side of the car has wheels and other side of the car has wheels, and you can say that's masculine, feminine, and then so when they work together, there's so much more we can do, and everything's balanced, and then each wheel has to be balanced within itself. So that's how I work. And today we've got Simon, who we are welcoming from all the way from, I believe are you in Spain at the moment?
Yes, we're still in Mallorca,
Mm-hmm.
and we're looking to move to Galicia in about a year
Amazing.
to build a shamanic center there together.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, I remember because I met you a few years ago, and it was because I had the pleasure of attending one of your weekend workshops, and it was a very powerful one. I think
Oh,
I've
yes,
been
right.
to a couple, and that's when I knew
Yes.
I love your work, I love your approach. So what I'd like to do is just dive straight in and just get you to introduce yourself to the crew, to our audience. Who are you, and what do you do?
Great. Well, wonderful to be here, first of all. I know we've talked about this a couple of times, and it's great that we've finally both found the time to do this. And it's actually a really good moment because I took the whole summer kind of like a quest to find out what is it really that I'm going to focus on offering over the next years.
Right.
And as you know, I come from a background of meditation, Siddha yoga, 20 years. I followed a guru for 20 years. I was involved in a very, very high-end Tantra yoga school for 5 years, even lived in the ashram for 2 years. And
Wow.
I got to realize, wow, Tantra isn't just quote unquote about sexuality. It's actually
Hmm.
95% spiritual, deep, esoteric knowledge about the body and the energies. And that was an amazing discovery. I thought I'd already learned a lot about yogic knowledge, and I'd been reading a lot in those 15 years prior, but this really blew my mind. And one of the things I took from that is that we can direct energies in our body.
Hmm.
And it's quite simple. It's not really that complicated. It's something that we can do with a simple pose. And it's this additional knowledge that I haven't experienced hearing about in Hatha yoga, which is, one of the directions that you can do this physical yoga.
Hmm.
As you probably know, there are all different kinds of yogas.
Hmm.
Tantra yoga is one of them, and that you get this extra knowledge about all the different postures in Tantra yoga, or at least in the one that I experienced. So that was a big aha moment for me, and I started practicing that basically since 2014. I've been doing a daily practice, and it's really benefited me in different ways. I was able to know what am I focusing on right now. Now, for the next year and a half, I want to really activate my yang energy, my masculine energy, and there's a specific pose for that. So I did
Hmm.
that for a year and a half, and you can actually see changes in my face in the photos before and after that year and a half. It's fascinating. I
Hmm.
have some here if you want to see them.
Nice.
And then I started to question everything in 2015. Even though this was all really benefiting me, I started to feel like there's some piece missing in these two spiritual paths. And I went through a period where I was reading a lot. I was just basically giving myself space to think about what is reality, what is spirituality, what can I find on this planet in the knowledge base of inherited knowledge of humanity that can help me have the most fulfilling life. And
Hmm.
that includes relationship, but that includes, first of all, like you were mentioning in the beginning, like the wheel, it includes us being harmonious within ourselves so that we can be on, maybe to take the analogy further, on an axis with somebody and we're not wobbling, but we're really zooming down the street
Yeah. Hmm.
or up. So that was really something that I was then wondering, well, how can I do that? How can I find somebody who sees the world like I do, who dares to question everything, and also is looking for direct, actual, real knowledge that I can really experience myself, not just read in a book or hear in a class. And then I met my now beloved Diana Beaulieu, who had been practicing core shamanism for already 14 years at that point.
Hmm.
And I dropped into that field of hers alongside into our relationship, which was just all of a sudden there. And I want to say to everyone out there that's maybe wondering, where can I find or will I ever find, these questions that we ask ourselves when we're alone on the path and we're really wishing for a harmonious relationship. It is possible. There are ways to work on yourself to really come into clarity and send a clear signal to the universe of what you are available to give to a
Hmm.
relationship, not just receive, not just a list of, well, he has to be like this tall and have to have that kind of level of success. No, what are you willing to give to a relationship? When you send that single signal out, sorry, I will turn off I don't know if I can turn off Firefox if that will disturb Zoom. Anyway, I'll just keep going.
That's all right. Well, we can't see or hear anything else. We can just see you, so it's all good.
Yeah, okay. So if you can then send that signal out, which is what I did for half a year when I realized that, then we found each other. And
Hmm.
then I dropped into this field of our relationship, which was like all of a sudden really there and really feelable. And it feels 5 years later, it feels the same. It feels like we're just
Hmm.
really beautiful relationship. And I dropped into core shamanism. And for me, after 5 years of really looking at everything and really questioning everything, finally it was some place where I could go in, zoom into the spirit world, and bring a question into it and then get a direct answer, not through an intermediary, not through a guru or a teacher,
Hmm.
but like directly from an energetic field or a power animal or a being, like the being of the earth, for instance, as a
Hmm.
conscious living soul and being, or the being of the sun.
Hmm.
And then I started to see, okay, great, Simon. Finally, now I can retrospectively look at all the stuff that I've learned before then, all the different postures, all the different knowledge, and just pick out what I can verify in the spirit world and that I've already verified myself through years of practicing it. And that's what I'm going to use as the foundation for my workshops. And you were part of some of the first workshops that I gave on Ibiza.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing. So I love that beautiful introduction. So everyone who's watching, this is just sort of like, as we like to say, the tip of the iceberg, right? So Simon's story is beautiful because, like many, and I'd like to just touch on that because you've talked about how you've been through a journey and then at a certain point you met your beloved, as you beautifully call her. And I wanted to bring that to the attention because I feel like this is where we're at in the world right now, and we want to talk a bit about that as to where a lot of people may be, whether there's self-awareness or not, and how they can find themselves in better spaces by just shortening the journey, like what you talk about, right? There's many years that you've put into, and now just going for a weekend experience with you will not only be life changing for so many people, but it will shorten the time that they will need to go on their own initiation for like another 5, 10 years. And it's because energy, as you said, shamanism, whatever it may be, wisdom, it's there at the blink of a second. When you're ready for it, it meets you where you are. And the analogy, since we started using it, guys, like talking about the car. So, I hear you talking, Simon, how it's like that thing of like you're a certain kind of wheel in your own internal balance, and you're going through life. As you said, whether it's wobbling or you're crushing it, and the universe is going to give you a wheel that balances out where you're at, so that you. So it's almost like the level of the vehicle, the relationship or the life that you can drive, whether it's a Ferrari or a Porsche or a broken down, VW. Depends on what kind of wheel you can embody. So I kind of try and use these images, so that people in our audience can kind of
Mm.
understand it. So I love that. So what I'd like to do is ask you, um, before we go any further, so I'm so interested in this, is in your opinion, what do you feel like if you were in a time capsule and someone's watching and beaming on our conversation from like 20 years in the future, what can you say to them to describe what's your opinion on what's happening in the world right now when it comes to not just men's health and the world that we live in from a man's perspective.
Hmm. Super interesting. It's something that I went into deeply, also because of what I learned in the Tantra Yoga school, and I'll tell you why. Not only did they have all this esoteric knowledge, they also had archetypal knowledge. The
Mm-hmm.
archetypal energy of the masculine, the archetypal energy of the feminine, and the four male archetypes and the four female archetypes. And I went deep into that. I took that
Mm-hmm.
5-day intensive seminar twice and really enjoyed it, and then kept studying it, and actually then gave a seminar to writers and directors because I was so interested in developing something out of it. It's an amazing tool for storytelling, and in the back of my mind there's still this space that maybe in the future I'll give maybe once a year or once every 2 years just that seminar for writers and directors and actors and
Nice.
artists in general. So what does that mean in terms of where we are right now? Looking at it through the archetypal lens,
Mm-hmm.
and the main archetype, one of the first, or how it was then shown to me. Of course, I've investigated this now shamanically. I learned it in the class, taught
Mm-hmm.
about it, and know that when you teach something, you download more information, and I downloaded more questions. The
Mm-hmm.
big question in my mind was, is it harmonious? Is it a manipulation? Because I was questioning everything. Are even the archetypes that we accept as, well, there's the king and there's the warrior, the magician, and the lover, and they're in all the fairy tales and in all the modern movies under different guises.
Mm-hmm.
Is that even pure? And I carried that around with me for a long time. And in one shamanic journey, one of our collaborators, one of the power animals that Diana had been working with for years, White Horse, said, and we'd been journeying with him for a while now, so he started to know me, and he said, Simon, you're going to love this. Come, I'm going to show you something. And he showed us a man and a woman, their soul, and around their belly, symbolically seen, was a wheel with 4 different petals,
Mm-hmm.
and they were each the male and the female archetypes. And he said, Simon, these are the originals. These are the human powers that we have as a 4 masculine version and 4 feminine versions, and they are all connected to the 4 elements.
Mm-hmm.
Each one is connected to the 4 elements. And then he didn't say what we then found out later, which the archetypes are kind of plopped onto that. And I'll get into that in a
Right.
bit, because there's a book that completely blew my mind this year.
Mm-hmm.
So these 4 are the harmonious kind of soul skills, powers, ways of being in this world, language to interact with each other and with the world. For instance, the human power related to the earth element is all about survival, building, having a roof over your head, having some kind of exchange where you're able to have food on the table and you can protect maybe your family or your whole tribe. That's
Mm-hmm.
the earth element primary concern. There are priorities in life decisions that come, somebody's in touch with that, he will prioritize fixing the roof over going to a party,
Right.
which the human power related to the water element might not.
Mm-hmm.
He might go and say, like, this party has such amazing musicians, they connect with source. It's going to be nutritious for us to be there, and
Mm-hmm.
then everything else will flow and we'll fix the roof tomorrow.
Right.
Also true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So nobody's right, nobody's wrong there. They have a different set of priorities, yeah, as you can see.
Mm-hmm.
So then we come to the main an axis. There's an axis of 2 different shadow sides that were presented in today's world related to your question. And they're both related to the king archetype. There's a king archetype shadow side that is the tyrant. The tyrant has an inner wound that makes him feel small and weak.
Mm-hmm.
Hence, he wants to dominate everybody to make himself look like he's big and strong.
Mm-hmm.
That's the tyrant. And then there's the collapsed masculine, the weakling, on the other side of that axis, which doesn't want to do anything and negates his power.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you think about this right now, all the different movies we've seen in the last 20, 30 years, this sort of ridiculous sort of shell of a man has been introduced more and more in a comedic, very funny kind of way. And there is that part of masculinity. We can be
Mhm.
quite ridiculous and funny. Yeah. But we're only being shown these two alternatives. So it's either the weakling that can't do anything right and is always late, never gets anything done, is not powerful, and sadly, as I describe in my book, is even afraid to come forward with a clear idea, let's say in a meeting at work, whatever, in a boardroom, because they don't want to appear to be dominant.
Mhm.
Yeah. They don't want to have anybody else say, well, he's a tyrant. So they
Mhm.
they hang back. They hang way back in a relationship also where it's like, honey, what do you think we should do this weekend? And he's like, I don't know, whatever you want to do,
Mhm.
dear. You know, it's like not really having thought about something in advance, which is one of the skills, the human powers of the earth element, to think ahead of time what might be needed, including emotional needs of the
Mhm.
partner in the relationship. You're like, I think she's been really stressed. She needs a nice romantic dinner out. So I'm
Mhm.
going to reserve that table and not
Yep.
tell her about it. And then Friday afternoon, it's like, do you feel like going to our favorite restaurant tonight? I think you've had a stressful week. That is a proactive thing that can, in most women, elicit deep relaxation. Wow,
Mhm.
I don't have to think about everything. Yeah. But can you see the dichotomy here? So, on the one hand, women are really yearning for men who have their own ideas, who stand up for what they believe in without being a tyrant, just saying,
Mhm.
like, this is really what I believe. I'm open to hear what you have to say about it. Even in the boardroom, I'm open to hear whatever anybody else says, but I'm going to state my view of the situation clearly. So, then can you see how most of us men in this time are kind of like in this conflict? Shall I come forward and say something in the relationship where it would be
Mhm.
really good to do that?
Yep.
Or by habit, am I now going to just always say, I don't know, whatever you want?
Mhm.
Which is apparently what I've been hearing from women, a complete turnoff.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
Because
Yep.
there's no masculine spark in that.
Yep.
So we're just presented these two versions of masculinity. Growing up, born in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, doesn't matter. It's been this whole time. What everyone is missing is that there's of course a harmonious alternative to this.
Yeah. Mhm.
And it's not in the middle between the two. Oh, a little bit more dominant, but not too dominant. Maybe that's the way, and all these kind of influencers who are saying you got to be like this, you got to be like that. Women are turned on if you're cold or if you're definite or if you're even kind of like a dick to everybody. Sorry to be using that
Mhm.
word, but that's somewhere between those two, isn't it? Well, there's a whole other level. And let me say, it's actually underneath. It's the
Mhm.
original human power of being a harmonious man who is relating to the earth element in a way in which he thinks ahead of time, what could the other people around me need?
Mhm.
And then does those proactively. And the others around them in the family or in the company or in the relationship can relax because, wow, they don't have to think of everything.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
I love that. Absolutely. So why I'm letting you talk is because I just love the thread that you're following because we do such similar work that it's great for you to speak about it in your way because I know that's absolutely what you're saying. So many men are struggling with exactly that. And as a relationship coach, you're so right. And you're hearing that, right? Women and some women don't know what it is. They won't realize all the sort of bickering and that frustration they feel they won't know what it is, but it's exactly that. It's the lack of their partner being able to show up in that confidence and, as you said, non-tyrant, grounded, present
Yeah,
way. So what I love
exactly.
about you're saying is I'd like you to just go a little deeper because I want my audience to sort of really catch up with us because I know a lot of them, even the words shamanism and stuff is going to go over their heads a bit. So we'll get into that more. But I would like you to explain from what you've said how I love the archetypal thing. So talking about the ground, right, the earth, it's like if you think about it, can you talk it from that perspective as a man? the root chakra, right, which is the sexual energy too, and that being grounded and being connected to the land and knowing what's needed and showing up in this energy, like how can someone today sort of aspire or see themselves going, okay, I'm here now, I'm here. Maybe I play video games and I'm watching pornography or whatever I'm doing, or I don't really have many girlfriends. You guys are talking a language I don't understand. What would someone like that do right now to help them understand these archetypes and how they can be away from that other side, which they will know. They'll go, that's me. I'm avoidant. That's me. So it's like, okay, it's not your fault. There's a reason, right? So we don't need to go into the reasons of why it's happening. Let's look at the solutions. So from the language that you love to use, like offer that to us in a way that we go like, oh, what can someone do about it from a man's perspective?
Okay, beautiful question, and happens to be spot on to what I am super excited about sharing with every man on this planet. And it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter how old they are or how young they are. And that is, we will never be in our strength when our inner strength is overlaid with layers of pain. And I venture to say that there are very few men on the planet, including myself, who have experienced a father who was 100% there and 100% emotionally available and completely passing through a line of fatherly love
Mm-hmm.
and nurturing, harmonious masculine energy that then gives you that sort of strength. And it's actually each time an initiation. Each time you would be with a father like that, you're always being initiated more into manhood, even as a 6-year-old. You're just absorbing it. I know this because I've absorbed so many great qualities from my father and from my mother.
Mm-hmm.
But being in this time, the fully harmonious flow of nurturing harmonious masculine energy and nurturing harmonious feminine energy didn't completely reach me. And I say this without blame. I say
Mm-hmm.
this completely with gratitude for who they are, because everything that I am is because of who they are. And they've been very supportive of both my film path and my spiritual path.
Mm-hmm.
So, having said that, how do you heal these layers? How do you dissolve these layers? Let me go into what usually happens
Mm-hmm.
and what I tried before. That is, like, let's say we're in a situation, it's a conflict situation in the relationship, and we're being triggered. So I'm being triggered in this moment, and I don't know what's happening to me. I'm feeling emotions that are so strong, and hopefully I realize that I'm being triggered. I would say at least half, and this is completely, a guess, of all men don't know that they're being triggered,
I can
and
tell
they
you
will.
now, majority, it's more than half. It's more than half. It's very unconscious, a lot of it.
Yes, yeah. So then what happens usually is I would then project onto the woman, hey, I was sitting here, I was fine before you came in and said these words about
Mm-hmm.
that, and now I feel horrible. You made me feel this way. It's your fault. Completely not taking responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
So, number one would be, if you're listening to this, make an intention. Make an intention deep in your heart in a moment of meditation, or just right now. Make an intention that the next time you're feeling huge emotions come up, consider the possibility that it might be yours. And it
Mm-hmm.
might be 10 times bigger than the small issue that you're talking about here. Doesn't that sound familiar? That we
Mm-hmm.
feel as men, come on, it's a small thing, but it's like this blown up into this big thing. Well, maybe that 10 times bigger emotion is your own.
Mm-hmm.
And what are you going to do about it? Well, I believe that one step we can take is to identify, okay, we've been triggered. Outside of the conflict situation, some other time when everything's calm and beautiful, take a moment with your beloved or your now maybe 10th date, you're just getting to know each other. Great time to bring up topics like this.
Mm-hmm.
You can build a relationship on this, what I'm about to tell you. Everybody has triggers, right? Yes, right. you're going to be triggered at different times. I'm going to be triggered at different times. How about we now set up a roadmap where if you're triggered, you feel into it and you're transparent about it. If I'm triggered and I feel into it and I'm transparent about it, we can say, you know what? I think I'm being triggered right now. I mean, I know we're talking about something that's actually real right now, but I think what I'm feeling is 10 times bigger, and I don't want to subject you to that. So,
Mhm.
how about I take a half an hour on my own and breathe into it? And please don't do this slamming the door and blaming the other, but saying, like,
Mhm.
I just need some time for myself. Is that okay? Without being passive
Mhm.
aggressive. That's the
Mhm.
whole trick. As soon as you're passive aggressive about this, it falls apart.
Yep.
If you're completely in empathy and asking for empathy, and then it's also setting a clear boundary and having talked about it before, you then have the chance for half an hour to sit there and breathe into it and let images come up. And if you're lucky, the big win is you're just like, oh wow, that's it. I'm seeing my mother from down here. I'm probably 8 years old. She's yelling at me, and I find it super unfair why she's yelling at me. I don't understand. I'm totally overwhelmed, and I don't know what to say. So I say nothing, and then I must have packed that emotion down.
Mhm.
And here's the whole key. That emotion is now like plasma energy stuffed somewhere in one of your organs or somewhere in your energy body. And there's a part of you, in shamanism, we call it a soul part in core shamanism,
Mhm.
that is frozen in that moment. And that since then hasn't really been online with all the other stuff that's happening in your life. And there's a beautiful gift there waiting for each one who discovers a frozen soul part. If you heal it, you can reintegrate it, and then there's more of you. I've had it said many times that people say to me after I've integrated an old soul part, wow, it's just like there's more of you. I see you more clearly. Your eyes are
Mhm.
shinier. Your somehow your face filled out. And I see it in clients as well. And then they
Mhm.
get feedback. And it's a
Yep.
beautiful thing. And it's something that's not talked about in psychology in that way. And it's not talked about in spirituality that way,
Mhm.
unfortunately.
Yep.
Because I meditated and chanted and did selfless work, seva, yoga, and listened to countless satsangs. That these are just basically like presentations on a spiritual level by a guru, in which you also absorb a lot of very positive energy. And I had hundreds of Shaktipat initiations. But at no point was it mentioned that, hey, you can investigate if you have a frozen soul part and some anger or fear energies that you've compacted away. And here's a technique to get that out.
Mm.
Didn't happen. Doesn't happen. I haven't heard of it in psychology, and I haven't seen it in spirituality.
Mm.
So here is an area that is a complete key that we haven't really had since shamanism has been suppressed over the last 6,000 years. And I can tell you why it's that number, but I don't want to go off topic.
Yes, I know we could be here for 3 hours going, so let's do that. So I want to stay on that because that's a beautiful gem you brought to the table, right? Because that's exactly it. So you got someone who I'm sure is listening to this and seeing themselves in what you're saying and going, wow, that is what I do. And I do slam the door and I get triggered. And now I can maybe understand that that's what's happening. And I've always been blaming the partner or so and so. So as you said, I love that. It's like, how about just considering for a moment by first of all removing yourself and giving yourself space, because what's good and that's what's great about social media and so many things is now it is becoming more common what you're talking about, like this shamanistic sort of holistic way of looking at things is creeping into a lot of different modalities, and that's great. So what people are hearing and what you're saying is like the similar thing of when you get triggered, and with trauma as we call it, right, there's this part of you that that 7-year-old boy, whatever, he gets frozen in time and he's still part of you. And so he shows up at certain points, like you said, when mom is like brought in because your partner, who's also a female. And what I love is as we talked about the wheels, you will attract a partner that is here to show you that as a mirror, because that's where you want to complete the movie in your life, where you can finally gain back, as you said, the next chapters which have been blocked. You've only been going through season 1 to 3 your entire life until you finally get partners who come and say, "Hey, I'm a mirror for you. And yes, it's more about you. And if you can own that, we can together co regulate and together grow into our queen and kingship together." So, that for me is the whole discussion we're having for a lot of people in my work. So, I love that you brought that up. And what I wanted to now ask you is, with regards to all of this work, let's go into the lens of how you're showing up and helping people in this space. Because I know that you, for example, you've got a intensive coming up, and you've got your online space as well. Let's have a conversation about that and what that looks like.
So, as you can imagine, once I found that out and started to live it for many years with Diana, I was then thinking, I've got to share this. But then I had different ways of doing that. What then happened was I was in those many shamanic journeys that I did, like maybe like 100 a year without plant medicine, just with the drum. I was then being offered men's initiations. And then I also asked, well, what is it that I should focus on? And it was clearly said soul bath, which is what I'd been doing for myself.
Mhm.
I was then being encouraged to share that with the men as well. So it's initiation and a daily practice. And I call it soul bath on the back of forest bath, which is
Mhm.
coming from Japan, which is even recommended by doctors there to relieve stress and to actually co-regulate with the trees. It's really
Mhm.
beautiful.
Mhm.
And in my daily practice, what I do is I reconnect with the energetic fields that I've been initiated into to accomplish the healing. So one part is the clearing. The first part is the identifying that we have a trigger and a soul part that's frozen. The next is what do we do with that information? And that is then going into the spirit world in a shamanic journey without plant medicine and clearing the pain out of that soul part and out of that part of the body. Clearing the pain or the anger, whatever, the overwhelm, whatever it was that got stuck there. As soon as that's been cleared out, you can then invite active healing energies, such as the healing energy of the earth or the healing energy of the sun, or of specific energy fields that you've been initiated into. In the weekend intensive, we focus on the father soul collective energy field, which has all the, it's really amazing. It has all the beautiful, harmonious masculine energies of all the harmonious fathers that have lived on this planet ever.
Mhm.
So it's somehow in the spirit world brought together as a collective energy and shows up as one field that looks like a kind of like an energy field that is kind of shaped like a man and who offers, I can give you the father soul initiation. And those that are present are always then in the position to either say yes or not say anything. If they say yes, then that energy field knows to give you that energy. And it then flows into you. And then in your daily practice, you can reconnect with that same field again and again and again,
Mhm.
however long you want. And I've been working with this particular one for a long time because it rounded off my men's initiations that I'd received before. Because we can't be in our power if we haven't fully received all the love and nurturing, harmonious masculine energies that we normally would have gotten passed through an
Mhm.
intact father line. So what trips me out about this the most is that I thought when I was a yogi that, well, I'm just going to have to live with these triggers. I'm going to have to live with this pain and always kind of having a neediness towards wanting a kind of father figure in my life. And surely being with a guru for 20 years um, gave some energy towards that, but it didn't fill it up.
Mhm.
And then discovering this initiation, the father soul initiation, has now filled that part up. It's like my soul parts, my childhood soul parts, have been filled up with this energy, and I just keep doing it
Mhm.
to fill it up because that's one of my principles also to always empower the men that I work with that they don't always
Mhm.
have to come back to me,
Right.
but they get the initiation, yes, through me and with the drum, I don't know how else to do that. I also couldn't pack it into my book. That has to be somehow live. But the
Hmm.
rest, I just teach them, here's the soul bath practice, and you can do it. You're empowered now to just repeat that for as long as you need. And if
Yep,
it takes a half a year, that's a year, half a year well invested of 20 minutes a day. It's not a lot of
absolutely.
time.
Yeah, no, it's a big topic, and even this for the benefit of my audience, because my audience, right, I've got so many people from around the world from different backgrounds, but I know that a majority of them as well are going to be people from my culture, Southern Africa, right, people who are very much in a very traditional, almost conservative background of being, whether it's like Islam or whether it's Christianity, right? So when we start talking about things like shamanism or the collective field, that's where I know for sure some people might still be sort of grappling with what are we talking about. So can we have that little conversation? Let's start with what would
Sure.
you describe shamanism to be? And when you're talking about these, what does it actually entail? Because I know that some of the translations would be in our culture, right, where we talk about the spirit, right, the ancestors, and that they go to certain places and they can connect with the father sort of line, and get guidance through from the ancestors, and there are certain African traditions that they have to be done a certain way and have been passed down for generations. Some of those things are still there,
Ah,
but a lot of our newer generations, we don't have those cultures or customs. We don't know what to do, or the customs that are expected. So I love the energetic side of things. So, and also definitely work on, or like go into the energy side of things. I think that would be interesting for people to understand as well.
okay. Very good point to make, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to make a distinction.
Hmm.
Shamanism is a very cultural thing, and it's passed down, like you say, through the line, and it has to be done like this and not like that.
Hmm.
Now, what happened in the 80s was that Michael Harner sought
Hmm.
as many indigenous tribes on the planet as he could find.
Right.
And what he found out was that they all
Bring
had
it up to
similar
books.
ways of,
Yeah,
sorry.
cool.
What he found is that they all had similar ways of looking at the spirit world and similar ways of getting there.
Hmm.
And the most common one he found is the drum.
Right.
And he founded then a way of learning the techniques that the shamans use all over the world, but without cultural appropriation.
Hmm.
And that's why I don't call myself a shaman, even
Hmm.
though I sometimes do 2 shamanic journeys a day.
Hmm.
But I call myself a man who's working with shamanic techniques.
Hmm.
And that's the principle of core shamanism. When they talk about the core shamanism, Paul Francis talks about this as well in Rewilding Yourself,
Hmm.
and also in his book about journeying. It's actually, this is if somebody's kind of talented in this way anyway,
Yeah.
this is the first in a series of 3 by Paul Francis, where he
Hmm.
really just describes shamanic journeying
Right.
very well. This is my favorite author.
Hmm.
I've gone through these books now. I'm on the second round because
Yeah.
I keep learning from them. I keep drawing inspiration from him, and I really want to meet him one day.
Hmm.
And ideally, just go to a workshop of his. I just haven't had the time in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So Michael Harner, Paul Francis also thanks Michael Harner for this, that core
Hmm.
shamanism even is around.
Right.
And core shamanism basically is working with the drum. And the drum that I use, I had a nice bag made for it here by our
Oh, nice.
local tailor.
Nice. And also, what's
Uh,
interesting, as you say that again, in African culture, it's the drum. It's a very prominent tool, like not just for
yeah,
entertainment, but it's got
exactly.
that same shamanic, cultural, spiritual sort of gift and sort of job or role to play.
Right. And it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful to work with the drum. There are some scientific thoughts about it. I don't know if this is too loud, if it's sort of
So
distorting.
it's because of your no, because the filter's on, we can't even hear it.
Okay, I can turn that off. I'd like you to hear it, especially if you have
Now we're
headphones
there.
on. Are you hearing the bass?
Yes. Yeah. Very basic, so which is very
Yes.
impressive for that size.
Yeah, and this is a speed of about 160 beats per minute. And scientifically speaking, the scientists think that this speed is what brings you into an equilibrium between the left and the right hemisphere
Right.
and makes it easier for you to enter an altered state. And I think they might be right, but I think there's something way more mystical going on than that. I think
Mm-hmm.
that somehow, as beings that have lived here, if your cosmology includes reincarnation,
Hmm.
so many times, and we've experienced shamanic drumming so many times that we just drop into our shamanic state
Right.
when we hear it.
Yeah. You know what? Like, I feel like it's such an interesting topic because when you bring this up, it's that thing of music, especially rhythm, right? Drums, even in the womb, that's one of the first things that you recognize as your mother's heartbeat. Everything is there's sort of like an entrainment and an activation that I think is so ancient that it just gets turned on. And that's what I do with my techniques with using NLP and hypnosis. Hypnosis is literally embedding something that is recurring, which, by the way, a lot of people's trauma is hypnosis because when they remember or see a face of a woman that reminds them of their mother, they get triggered and they don't even know that's what it was. It was the woman on the street 5 minutes ago who reminded them of their mother and they don't even know it happened. And then they get agitated and that's a trigger. So it's that deep. So when you're talking about drumming and even the speed you're doing and at the frequencies, I think it's all so complex in a way that it's all in play depending on people and as you said, their cosmology and stuff. It's a fascinating topic.
Yes, absolutely. But in the end, what interests me the most is if it works.
Hmm.
So for me, the proof is in myself and in the men I've worked with. If I feel different and I get less triggered in the same situations, then something actually worked. Everything else is nice, it's interesting,
Yeah.
and it's an amazing experience to have shamanic journey. Many even see their power animal, even if it's the first time. There's no prior
Hmm.
experience necessary. But what excites me is if I then hear from men, oh, yes, I got to a place of inner strength faster than in my decades of Tibetan Buddhism and other techniques. And that doesn't mean that they're leaving their Tibetan Buddhism practice. That's part of who they are. But they're just
Hmm.
now including this,
Yeah.
and I think there's inherently no conflict because, historically speaking, it's very likely that most of the spiritual paths came out of shamanism in one way
Hmm.
or another, or were overlaid over it,
Yeah.
and but somehow failed to include in their new iteration that there are such things as energies that you need to clear out, that there's such a thing as healing with a direct energetic field, um, and that you can be initiated, that you need to be, or that it's good for you to be initiated, like
Hmm.
from 14 years old on. I completed mine now this year, and I just turned 58, so
Hmm.
it is what it is. We are where we are.
Yeah.
And one of the things Paul Francis says is that he sees this new generation of core shamans that are able to bring very important intact information from the spirit world to what they call the middle world. Like we're all
Hmm.
in the middle world, and even the energetic side of it, what in spirituality is called the astral world, is part
Hmm.
of the middle. But the lower shamanic world and the upper shamanic world both have very pure regions where you can bring or connect with a very pure state of something, like harmonious masculine qualities. And how valuable is that right now, in this world?
Absolutely. As we were saying, yeah. And by the way, if you want, you can put your filter back on. It's not a big difference, but it's
Oh, yeah.
gives us a bit more, yeah, of the less of the background noise. So as you're saying that, right? This is the thing. It's like I think it's important because again, I think we're very similar in this way. What I do is a lot of it's very sort of holistic in my approach, and it's all very much all about altered states and stuff like that as well. But I'm using tools like hypnosis and NLP, which is again talking to the unconscious mind journeying, but in a visualization way, like the voice, all that kind of thing. But what's important for my work as well is I also am taking people into states and places without any. of the medicines or substances of any kind. And that's what I find very exciting, is that it's possible. Because I mean, I'm mid 40s. I'm a musician. I've traveled the world, and I'm someone who's been in places where people would expect that I drink a lot. Perhaps the drugs being offered, women are all over around me, but I'm someone who has that kind of control where I've never taken drugs and stuff. I'm teetotal and still am, and so I kind of thought to myself, like, where does that come from? How do I have such self awareness and discipline to be able to still be me in all of these vortexes? And not only that, it's hard for people to believe. When they meet me, they're like, "You are so energetic and you have this energy and confidence. Ooh, I thought you were on some hard drugs, dude." And I'm like, "No, I'm connecting to a source." And I've actually felt this. I've even had lights turn on and off sometimes when I'm in certain places. So I'm very interested in that space of, like, as you're talking about, that there's these energy channels that I know I'm definitely tapped into, a lineage or whatever it may be that you're talking
Mm.
about, and these energies and these new types of shamanism and stuff that are coming through. So I would love to go back to the sort of topic of coaching, because this series is about the Coach Cafe, and I'm bringing you in here as someone who, hopefully, someone's watching this and thinking, I would love to get into Simon's world and at least find out more. He's an interesting guy, and I'd like to find out a bit more for our audience. What kind of people do you find yourself working with? Like, who are they, and what
Mm.
sort of issues do you find yourself maybe helping people with that are very sort of prevalent in your space?
Right. I work with a lot of men that have had prior spiritual experiences,
Hmm.
that have been practicing something before, but also quite a lot of men who haven't done anything in that direction and
Hmm.
who haven't done any shamanic journeying.
Hmm.
Some have had the plant medicine experiences, of which some were good for them and some they didn't like, or they felt like they weren't really being taken care of,
Hmm.
and some where they were taken care of very well. And then what we're looking at is usually some concrete problem. I'm in this relationship and I don't feel in my power. How do I get to a different chapter? I've tried this, this, and this, and this. And I see
Hmm.
myself as somebody who can help those who have tried a whole bunch of other things and they still feel stuck with
Hmm.
something. And then what I offer is, first of all, the group coaching experiences like the weekend intensive, and from next year on, also the longer format, where there'll be 3 sessions per month, and then the fourth week is off. But it's just a 2 hour, 2.5 hour session. So it's integratable. And where you get your initiations. And on the side, for some who need it, there'll be the private sessions, the private coaching. And the
Hmm.
private coaching is about me listening and hearing about what's going on in the person's life, in a man's life. Sometimes also having a couple session, having both
Hmm.
there. And after talking maybe half an hour, 45 minutes, I usually have an intuitive guidance of something that I could offer from my medicine bag, from the tools that I
Hmm.
have learned. And I then offer that. I say, this is what I'm getting. This could be useful. We could investigate this, or this in a shamanic journey to find out, is there an energetic reason for this symptom in your life? You have a symptom
Hmm.
that you're not comfortable with, and we could find out if there's an energetic reason, because if there's an energetic reason, then this symptom can for sure be dissolved.
Hmm.
And it goes so far, and this is fascinating, as to being concretely physical pain that then goes away.
Hmm.
And I don't claim that in any of my uh, posts or whatever, or my website, because it usually happens as a side effect. We were actually looking for something as a reason for different problems in the life of that man. But then one of the power animals does a diagnostic and says, "Hey, we see like this happened. We see this really dark energy inside the shoulder and all inside the arm. Would you
Hmm.
like me to remove it? Because always we stay sovereign." So he said yes, and then Jaguar, one of my power animals, went in and energetically cut open this part of the energy body and squeezed out all this black plasma energy.
Hmm.
And then a week later, he comes back to our session. These were private sessions, And he says, Simon, I've been taking a painkiller every afternoon for the last years because I knew in the afternoon this pain starts in my shoulder and it's excruciating. It goes down all of my arm. And this
Mm-hmm.
whole last week, I've not had to take any painkillers. It's just gone.
Mm.
And it was something specific from his life as a boy when he was being told off, and some energy shot into his shoulder always the same way. And
Mm-hmm.
because we don't really have these techniques embedded in our culture or it's not taught at medical school,
Yeah.
then nobody knows to look into it. I'm not blaming anyone for this. We're all just arriving in the state of society that we're in.
Mm.
But my dream is that we start to weave that into all of the
The
practitioners
practices. Yeah.
and even mainstream medical.
Yeah. Now
Because
that's a
it's
beautiful
true.
example that you're bringing
Yeah,
up because this is where again I'm trying to be sensitive about my culture that I come from and some people in my world who might be watching this if they've stayed this long to be going, geez, what is this woo stuff these guys are talking about, right? So I love that because it's not just coming from me; it's coming from someone else in your own way. And what you're seeing is that I want to speak to that. It's this thing of what I call again. That's why I keep saying energy, right? Because I look at it as the unconscious mind is about 5% conscious and, give or take a 95% unconscious, right? It's programming, it's patterning. That's why AI is going to disrupt the entire world because it can process patterns and we are just fully living patterns in our lives and it can see it. So our patterns are unconscious and we don't really know that we're doing it. We're just doing it like the driving home, right? Sometimes you go, did I drive today or did I take the bike? You don't even remember. So energy works the same way in my world where it's like, about 5% of us, you and me right now, is the present physical. And 95%, you could say, is the energy. And that's malleable and expansive and it can cross the planet. But it's there, even though people may not
Mhm.
see it, but we can feel it. And because of that, it's running our reality and it comes in physical form in terms of the 5% has a physical, reaction to the energy. So because of that, what I look at is what you do as well with the yogic practices and stuff. It's energy hygiene is what I call it. It's when we're younger, we didn't learn to go, oh, I have an energy body or bodies, and
Yeah.
I should clean those daily and have my daily practices. And so,
Mm.
talk to me a bit about that because I think it's important. It's like we brush our teeth, we wash our skin, our hair, but the energy, 95%, just as a placeholder of a number is just being left to chance, which is why I feel these things
Mm.
can happen and hang on for so long because people aren't aware of it. Then the physical symptoms become, like you said, that's just life. I got to live with it. And then something gets healed and there's no even explanation about it. But I feel like the explanation is that it's like that childhood pattern or whatever that we're talking about, the frozen energy, it is energy and it can be seen by those who are able to see energy. So that energy hygiene conversation, tell us a bit about that and how it comes into your work.
Well, I would like to honor the power animals that I work with,
Mm,
peacock, buffalo, and jaguar, because they're the ones who do this diagnostic. So
mm,
going into the journey means having an intention together with the men, if it's a group, or this
mm,
one client. And then these power animals show up, not all of them all the time, but at least one of them, and says, we heard your intention, and we can take you to a place in the spirit world where we can look into this. And then what's fascinating about it is if things like what I just described happen.
mm, mm,
And I want to make clear that even though I feel like I see the messages that they get, there's this point where the power animals ask, so are we allowed to look into your energetic field? Because they
mm,
don't do anything without permission.
mm,
And then if the men say, or the man that I'm working with says yes, then they're allowed to look in. And then while they look in, it's almost like I'm being shown what they're seeing. But it's
mm.
them who are doing it. It's them
Yeah.
who are diagnosing and examining. And then also they offer, well, what we could do is we could clear this out. But it's attached to thought forms in the head. Let's say you have
Mm,
something here in your liver, but it's connected to thought forms in your head that you have. And then they show me what
mm.
they're finding, but I really want to honor them for helping us in this way.
Yeah.
And the more that these things come up, the more I realize I may have ideas about what's happening for this man or this group, but
Mm.
very often, and that's my favorite part, I'm surprised. Like I'm
Mhm,
surprised that something is being revealed that I hadn't thought of, with my
mhm.
5% brain. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
Everything is accessible all of a sudden, and it's
Yeah.
about the real cause of what is causing these symptoms.
Yeah.
And usually, like I said, because it's not something that I'm advertising, usually it's about something in someone's life, they're feeling,
Mm.
or not feeling strong, or feeling sad, or having low self-confidence. These are all very serious feelings to have and to walk around with, especially if you're a man,
Mm-hmm.
or woman, of course, as well. But we have our own particular challenges with that.
Mm.
And again, what I can say is the best way is A, to realize you have something there that hasn't been healed, even in years of meditation or years of therapy. One client said to me, Simon, how can it be that I've had 7 years of talk therapy and I've got an understanding of the problem, but not healing? And then
Mm.
3 sessions with you, and I've changed something, actually
Mm.
changed something, actually discovered that it was an agreement with himself to just go into this space within this meditative space
Mm-hmm.
in a conflict situation. But for his partner, it was brutal
Mm.
because he would just shut off.
Mm.
And he himself was in this like nice meditative space, but
Mm.
there was no resolution of the conflict because they weren't
Yeah.
communicating.
Mm.
So all of these things, if there's one thing you could take away from listening to this today is that there are then ways to go and find out something that are beyond what I can do. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm understanding a lot of this as it's happening, and I need to. I'm not like a channeler who's then gone and then
Mm.
wakes up afterwards, which I've experienced as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't remember what they said or the wisdom that they were speaking. No, I'm completely there the entire time, and I'm
Mm.
always holding the space and making sure that we're in a safe space, number one, that we're only working with the power animals that I know,
Mm-hmm.
so that this goes well every time. I've not had any instance where somebody then had to remove an entity or things like that that sometimes happen in the plant medicine and even
Mm.
Temescal circles. I've even
Mm-hmm.
had it happen in sound healing circles where I had to clean
Right.
off some entities.
Mm.
But anyway, this is then something that is best to investigate, to read about, and the best introduction, if I may plug this myself, is
Mm-hmm.
to read this introduction. This is particularly written for men who have no idea or have never had any experiences with spirituality or meditation or shamanism,
Mm-hmm.
and those that have had that but are ready to see it from a different perspective, to open up a little bit and go a little bit deeper, literally deeper.
Yep.
And it actually describes what I said in the beginning about the archetypes and where we're stuck between the tyrant and the weakling, and that
Mm-hmm.
there's another one that we can access. And there's actually described in here how you can do the daily soul bath practice,
Yep.
and you can get underway just by reading this. You get underway, and then if you feel the call, come to one of the weekend intensives. It's not a big commitment, but if you then feel something there, or even actually have a change from that, then you know, okay, this might be a path for me.
Great, that's great, and that's a great segue into your book that you've just shown us. And we've got the links in the show notes, by the way, so people can actually come and click on that. So as we sort of end off for a bit, I wanted to just like tie off that section because I think it's a very important section. You said some very important things there, right? Talking about working the way you do and the energy and the sovereignty. It's like it's so important. Again, I'm talking about I call it energy hygiene, where a lot of people their energy is very open, they're not very aware, and so
Mhm.
it's so important that people become aware. And then we talk about it a lot with my clients, like the B word, right? Boundaries. So like we just,
Mhm.
our generation was never raised with that. In fact, those were completely taken out. It was like, no, you don't get to have those in my house, right? So it's so important for people to
Mhm.
understand and know. People will even hear words like, oh, entities and energy, and they will already be getting triggered because of the culture. And I'm trying to say, this is just these are everyday words that should become normalized to go. I just said it. We're 95% plus energy, literally. So you can't just ignore it. It's there. And the best thing you
Mhm.
can do is have sovereignty. And what I mean by that, as well as what you said very well, it's like even if you're working with a professional such as yourself, and what you do is just, in your space, but whether you're working with energy healers or whatever it is, there'll always be okay, do you want to do this? Is it are you open for this? And will this happen? And they will not do anything if you're not safe or open to it. And therefore, as an individual, you need to understand that if you feel like you're in maybe a victim mentality where things are happening to you and people are doing things to you, or they're living in your mind and you just feel them there, that's energy that you can also do something with on your own. And like with working with you, for example, and stuff, to get conscious and aware and to get into your daily routines where you get to strengthen and fortify your own energy boundaries. So I think that's very important to bring up as well.
Yeah, for instance, the soul bath daily practice includes in the first phase, it's only 3 phases. In the first phase, that you can connect with the earth and ask the earth to help you clear out any energies that you're wanting to let go of. So
Yeah.
then you're not alone with that. And
Mm,
plus you're starting to reconnect and dissolve the sense of separation that many of us have in the modern
mm.
world. So
Yeah,
this is a
absolutely.
beautiful way to connect to nature as well.
Absolutely. So tell us about what you've got coming up. I know you've got an intensive. Tell us a bit about that so people who are watching and they can, because again, in the show notes, we've got some links. How can we find you? What do you have on offer at the moment? Where do we find your book? Because I think it's on your website, which you've linked as well.
Yes. So this book right now is available. One can actually order it right now as a paperback or a Kindle, and it
Mhm.
takes you through the state that I see we are in right now. And I always say, in many points in the book, I'm only sharing what I have experienced and for me feels true, but I'm not expecting you to just take that as, something that you have to take on in order to keep reading. Yeah. So everybody's cosmology of the world and their spiritual views, all of that is unquestioned, really, but there's a new perspective being offered. And the
Mhm.
new perspective is only being offered as something that might be useful, not just because
Mhm.
it's interesting, an interesting philosophy. So what I'm offering every now and again is now going to be the weekend intensives, and it will be something like, in this one, it's specifically being initiated into this beautiful energetic field that I talked about, so we can actually load up on maybe some harmonious masculine energies that we didn't receive as a child, and we can call up those soul parts, and then bring that into the daily practice after experiencing a full-on shamanic journey with a drum and an initiation with the drum. So that's what happens on that weekend. You get an initiation into an energetic field. So in a way, you get to feel the IP address of that amazing energetic field so that when then you do your daily practice, you know which number to dial up. Does that
Right.
make sense?
Great way
So
of
it's
putting it. Yeah.
so it's these two elements. One, connect you to something new that you didn't have a connection to before, then tell you a method in which you can reconnect to it in just as many times as you want.
Mhm.
And then it's about also we're going to do a journey on the Sunday night to connect with an energetic field of willpower, masculine willpower within each one of the participants, which is, in my experience, for all of us already there. We're just not
Mhm.
accessing it.
Absolutely. I
And
agree.
then a method in which we can access it and then get into a daily practice in a very simple way, in a very slow ramp up, literally starting with 30 seconds a day
Nice.
to make it very easy. And then from next year on, I will be offering what only starts once a year, a longer program. And that's what came out of the summer for me, the quest of like, what can I really offer honestly,
Mhm.
where change can really happen. Because so far I've always been offering 5-week intensives or
Mhm.
weekend intensive, now coming up next week. But what I really feel we need is months, several months in which each month you're given an initiation and a time to integrate that and practice that in your daily practice. And then the
Mhm.
next initiation, then the next initiation. And then advice in the sharing circles, you can share about where you're going with this, or you can have private sessions to go deeper with something where you can then really call up energies that you've been carrying around with you, emotional baggage that you've been carrying around with you, and also neediness that has never been filled up, and actually heal the wounds and actually fill up on these strength energies, these harmonious masculine energies, and in general healing energies from the earth and from the sun, so that you have these resources and you're in a container with other men where you can really go through a process of maybe 2 or 3 layers that you might be able to heal, and 6 initiations where you might be absorbing strength that you would
Mm.
have normally have gotten in your tribe when we still had this whole father line and mother line intact.
In balance, yeah, that's great because it's a
And
very important thing that men are missing. It's that brotherhood, but not just mates down the pub and maybe getting negative influences. It's like that whole grounded, as you're saying, very sort of strong, sort of lineage based brotherhood where you would go to be with the men and be in ceremony with each other. So I feel like that's why the work that you do and the kind of work that I do and people like us, it's very important right now. So I'm looking forward to it, and actually I'm just putting it out there now. I'm sure within the next year, as I get things going, we'll find opportunities where we can also co-create something together and do something
mm,
on the island or who knows what. Because I feel like it's going to be needed more and more from what's coming. So I feel like I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. And my last question I have for you is, in terms of being on the Coach Cafe, it's a bit of a tradition. What is your usual go-to drink in this scenario?
right, it's now almost finished. I wanted to
Yep.
show it in the beginning. I
Yeah.
served myself this in an old jam jar.
Hmm.
It is a smoothie made of some frozen fruits, some berries, some blueberries, in this case mango as well, usually banana,
Hmm.
and I add some vegan protein powder made of hemp protein, almond protein, and macadamia protein,
Hmm.
and some cinnamon to help the body and the pancreas kind of absorb all this fructose, and chlorella to clear out. And I find this very important to kind of
Hmm.
have a constant detox from all the metals that are also in the air
Right.
that are
Yes.
being sprayed officially as kind of a help for the weather in some cases,
Hmm.
and they're calling it geoengineering. It's something for us all to look into the studies that have already been done. But what we can individually do is actually detox constantly. And I do that with
Hmm.
chlorella and a little bit of vitamin C powder and Jasta. And I love that as oh yeah, and a bit of granola on top. So for me,
Okay.
it's like this wonderful afternoon snack that I have, between lunch and dinner.
Nice and fully jam-packed too, which is a nice little
Yeah,
combination. Super
yeah.
cool. So thank you so much, Simon, for taking some time to join us on the Coach Cafe. And so yes, everyone who's watching and tuning in, even if it's the replay, do let us know what you think. I'm sure there'll be in the comments or DMs. Follow Simon on his social media as well. Where else can we find you, by the way?
One more thing. I forgot to
Yep.
mention that next year I'm also starting a practitioner path. So those who want to
Hmm.
learn to be able to do this, what I'm doing, can learn
Right.
that within 14 months. And that's all findable on my
On
website
your
as
website.
well,
Great.
soulrise.earth.
Awesome.
And
We've got that in the
yeah,
links.
and one of the other things I'm interested in is men's longevity, and I've been starting 6 months ago to take these products from Quantum, which I'm
Hmm.
now becoming a proud affiliate of, unashamed to do that,
Yep. Hmm.
because I feel it's really good for me and I think it's really good for others. It includes products like NMN in a very pure format, taurine, and all of that. I just said, well, I don't know, maybe it's great,
Yep.
maybe not, but I've been taking it for 6 months now, and
Hmm.
granted, also doing some more sports.
Yep.
And I feel like I'm getting back into a feeling of mid 30s again. It's really
Great.
quite profound. It's not just like
Yeah.
taking vitamins. There's something changing in the mitochondria, something helping the body help itself. All of these things that they offer are kind of things that occur in the body anyway, and you're just giving it a bit
Yep.
more and helping it
Hmm.
to create all the other things it needs to stay
Yep.
super healthy.
Yeah. Well, I think that's an important
Anyway,
thing you bring up, right? People working with you in that sort of space, that's the thing. They get to benefit not just from your practices, but like your diet and your lifestyle choices, because we do live in a world that, as we've said, it's the disconnection. So we're not being resourced naturally as we should be. So we all are at a deficit just from the environment we live in. And so what you're saying, and working with someone with you, where you go, hey, this is working for me. I've looked into this and these are products that are supporting men's health or whatever it may be. I think is great because I'm all about that probiotics, right? And also the biohacking. Those are things I want to go deeper into in the next phase of my
yeah.
life because I've been in a lot of like move, go, survival, and that how it is. There's a budget that's needed, all those kinds of things. So I'm in that space where I'm entering that now. So that's a very interesting topic. So I'm glad you mentioned that because I think it's worth mentioning and it's important too.
Yeah, and what I say to those guys, because I'm working with them, is it can't just be about material supplements that we take in, however great they are. If we
Mm.
keep carrying around our emotional baggage, if we
Hmm.
keep not being connected to sources of strength, then that'll be great, but there's something missing as well. So,
Yeah.
what else has made me feel younger and younger is in the last 4 years, having more positive effects in my personal development than in 20 years of meditation. That's
Wow.
also an important statement because
Yeah.
we all rely on meditation as something that inherently healthy, which it is, but it's not inherently healing our childhood wounds. It's
Hmm.
not doing any shadow work. It's always trying to
Hmm.
make ourselves feel better by
Right.
meditating in those
Mm.
moments. And core shamanism brought me something that I didn't get in 20 years of meditation or tantra.
Very
Also,
powerful.
an important thing to share. For me now, it's just normal, but I keep reminding myself to share that because
Hmm.
many are wondering, well, what should I do? I know I need to do something, and
Hmm.
all of that's great. It's great to have a great psychologist and work with them and understand your psychological makeup and then work with that. It's great to do
Hmm.
meditation to connect with your innermost being, I find. I
Hmm.
find that more useful than trying not to think, which is Zen
Yeah.
meditation. Connecting
Hmm.
with your innermost being and then doing the shadow work and doing sports and taking supplements. These
Hmm.
things are kind of a package for me that I'm working with right now, and I'm just sharing that it's working for me. It doesn't mean
Yeah.
that it'll work the same way for you. Everyone's always responsible for their own choices.
Yes, which I love, by the way. What you've said is so important because we live in a world exactly where people are sort of broadcasting this is what you should do. And if you're not doing this, then you're wrong and you're bad. I'm really off the same. And that's why I reconnected with you when we met. It's like there's this sort of heart-centered masculine energy of being connected to the collective and going, hey, these are my truths and yours might be different, but we can help guide you there to find yours. And as you said, it's a source connection between you, the direct dial, right? The IP address, like everyone has their own. So I love that you brought that up. And I think it's a wonderful way to sort of end off today and just remind people to stay sovereign
That's
and to
wonderful.
understand that they need to figure out first. A lot of people don't know where they are. So people can be
Mm.
lighthouses and beacons, but knowing that your truth is yours wherever you are. So I hope whoever's listened today and watching that you enjoyed our chat, and please do follow Simon on his and keep in touch. You know, join, go and see his stuff. I highly recommend it. He's one of the first teachers I went to when I was getting into this space, and I just really
No, no.
appreciate his work. And so we will be in touch soon. So thank you, everybody. We will see you on the next episode, and till soon. Ciao.
Thank you, Ryan, for